So recently I've been sleeping like a lot more than, they would say is like the amount you're supposed to or whatever. And you might think that it would have some sort of negative effect on your, like, how you see reality and that kind of stuff, but it actually doesn't at all. When you sleep, your imagination is able to manifest itself in its fullest potential. So, when consuming media while sleeping, it is essentially already what we're able to do on technology. When you're on the computer, it's you're being an artist. You're looking at a canvas. And in your dream, it's the same way. When you close your eyes, your mind is the same canvas. Now, we may not be able to specifically transfer, exact information as we do with internet-based stuff, but it's the same difference. Although there's a key thing that is proven with this discovery, that when we look at how we judge humanity and humanity's successes, it's usually looked at as, America is the most wealthy country, right? And that's how we get where we're at. It's because of these physical and material things. You see computers, and what are we using them for? What are we getting out of them? We're able to visually see things. However, it's simply an extension of the same mind that we dream with. Because what we're seeing isn't real. It's a connection of pixels. It's a connection of cubes. And the same thing occurs when you dream. Same exact phenomenon. However, it's actually in a better manifestation. When you're awake, your mind is limited to whatever reality is. And this is good for a lot of people, because a lot of people fail to recognize the potential of the human mind. And it would probably be dangerous if everybody knew the potential of the human mind. Because the thing we possess, more so than anything else, that is a vital skill, is our ability to know and create concepts. Our imagination, the ability to create and process creations. So, in the physical world, a creation takes effort, it takes work, it takes energy in order to make art. Whereas in the dream world, there's an unlimited source of energy, there's an unlimited flow of all this stuff. we work in a limitless fashion. It's infinite. You could say it's sort of the divine pathway, sleep. Because of the world we live in, sleep is seen as a negative. It's seen as a, oh, if we didn't need sleep, we could be more productive. But I've disproved this, because when you sleep, you're actually operating on the same wavelength that you would be operating on when you're awake. For instance, if you think that free will is an actual thing, I'm just going to say for the record that it isn't. When you make decisions on a daily basis, they are out of your control because they're automatically planned based on what you would do. We are built off of habit. So once you build a habit, it's automatic that is going to be your decision, right? It's really easy to see when you look into what happens when people are addicted to things, but it also just works with the basic way we do things. So, with school, it's very likely that somebody who's very used to the concept of going to school is not going to be able to break that concept and will just continue to do it. Which is why, if many people would think and consider, it's quite often that you would have a dream in a school-based setting, because it's a setting that you've spent your life in a lot, right? So in the same way that that's true, the dreams you have are an enhancement of what you would have been doing anyway had you had not even had a dream. What I mean is, let's take a prime example. If you think like a lot of people, they would play a video game, maybe watch movies, listen to music. All these mediums are manifest in dreams. However, they're able to be better than what's possible in reality, because we're working within the imaginatory realm. So your brain can exaggerate and make the reality significantly more enjoyable than if you were just listening to music while awake. You can the potential is there is no, it's an infinite amount of potential. Whereas with the physical world, you're bound by whatever medium you're actually is relatively available to you. Like if you don't have the right kind of monitor, if you don't have the right kind of computer to run whatever you're trying to experience, it sort of hinders it. You have like loading, you have a ton of factors that happen in the real world that in the dream state can be perfect. And that's the big thing, is we spend so much time in the real world and we want the real world to be better. A lot of people have very unhappy, or they complain about things a lot. And then if you're living like that, if you're living in an environment where things are, negative, or you just think that they're negative. Remember the imagination, right? It's like a double-edged sword, 'cause on one hand, you can make situations and things be better than they actually are, and on the other hand, you can make things and situations seem worse than what they actually are. Now, many people don't understand this, and they don't understand this for their entire life. So you don't realize that every single thing you view as bad is only because your brain is exaggerating it. And really the same with everything you view as good. The brain is exaggerating reality to make it a certain way through our emotion. If you viewed things through the purely logical, realistic view of reality, everything doesn't actually have any negative or positive energy. It's only through our interpretation that we are able to even understand if there's a negative or positive. But it's through humans' own acknowledgement of that. So if you're around a bunch of people in a social setting, because of the way our brains work, they want to try to link up with what everybody else is doing or thinking. And that's why a lot of people who are in negative situations are going to feel negative if they don't understand, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people, they don't like thinking about stuff. They actually despise thinking about things. I don't even think nobody's watching this video. I don't even believe it. 12 minutes in, no. But they despise thinking. And in that despising of thinking, they're actually setting themselves up to suffer even more, because the people think that thinking is the suffering, that having to come to terms with reality is suffering, and people think that reality is negative, and it's false. It's a shame that this is what is interpreted out of existentialism, because existentialism is actually correct, but people with their emotional interpretation of it fail to realize what it really is talking about. Like, if there isn't a purpose in the material world, that isn't negative at all. It's actually fully neutral. So again, a nihilist, which would believe that the purposelessness is absolute, it's not really a negative thing. Everybody would think it is, but it's not. It's perfectly neutral, because it means that reality in and of itself is neutral. It's like a blank canvas, right? You can see your life as this. Your life is like an empty book, or it's an empty canvas. And you're not looking at a white canvas and saying that it's bad. What you're doing is you're actually drawing something and saying that it's bad, because it's when you have reactions to stuff, you're not literally reacting to whatever thing you're reacting to. When you eat a food that you think tastes good, it's not literally the food that is tasting good. It's your brain's understanding of what the food is. So it's very, very easy for people to think that when events happen, it's negative, and then it spirals into this domino effect of negativity, when in reality, it's just because you're having an effect of all these people within the same environment. They're all doing the same thing. They're all getting negative, and they're just going to continue to do it instead of assessing the situation, realizing the divine and supreme neutrality in everything that we do, and realizing it's our reaction to things that is actually what creates truth. It's how you react to things. People can fail to believe something that's true, and for all intents and purposes, it doesn't really matter, because you can believe something that's false quite easily. It's really easy, and every single human, their beliefs are not factual. It's very interesting how one of the first things you learn is the distinction between fact and opinion, and how this is like promoted to us. It's like something, it's always been puzzling to me why the concept of fact and opinion is presented. Because there's no real way for humans to understand facts. It's like, it's something that we can assume is a certain way, but we never actually will know what a fact is. We will never actually be able to understand a fact. And as much as people might think that sounds stupid, it doesn't. There is no answer or no true definition that will make us ever be able to understand facts, because it's almost a security. It's people want to think that there is something out there that they can cling to. For whatever reason, people want to cling to security. They think that security has value because people aren't existentialist. I've met plenty of people who claim to be even outright nihilistic, and they're really not. Like, they're totally not. They're still totally entrenched with emotion, and it's usually negative. Like, people, there's this really strange, people who are negative, and they associate that with nihilism. And even, I think, in the way most humans interpret it, it's in a negative way, but it just doesn't make any sense why it would be negative. It's that neutral reality. It's totally neutral. The fundamental way humans acknowledge their happiness is their purpose. And that's why. Because if there's no purpose in doing stuff, people feel like there's no like you shouldn't do stuff because there's no purpose. It's really strange. I don't know why it's evolutionary. We have adopted this trait. But it's not a good one. It's a negative thing to really, because it's people put their happiness in their purpose. That's what happens. If their purpose, if their job is viewed by other people as being good, they feel validated based on the other people around them, not based on their own doing, So it's just one of those things, man. People gotta stop getting validation from these things that are like not themselves. Like you just can't believe that purpose is the path to happiness. And that's, I know it's something that a lot of people will just, I mean, you can't change it. That's what people say. People always do that. People have very pessimistic views of reality because it's easier to have a pessimistic view of reality. It doesn't really take a lot of thought to be a pessimist. It's very difficult to be optimistic and it's not because the world is bad at all, because the world isn't. The world it's a good place, depending on literally just how you're interpreting it. Because like I said, if it's fundamentally neutral, there's no flaw with it, because neutral things in a neutral state are flawless fundamentally. Because if you hit a neutral point, you literally, like, I guess sleep is a good example of a neutral point. Sleep is literally when you're in the most neutral possible point. It's our neutralizer. It keeps us from, keeps us together, keeps us one piece. Our happiness doesn't need to stem from our purpose. And we don't even really need to think there's a purpose to begin with. It's just our instinctual way of interpreting happiness from emotional validation, or, again, like you feel like a purpose in doing something. And it's really strange, because if you actually took the time to think and and look around, you'd realize that there really isn't purpose. It's non-existent. And what's very stupid is that a lot of people just, the few people who do understand this, they think it's a bad thing, and then they just accept. Basically, when you think of an idea, it's very likely that it will appear negative or appear bad. And then if you proceed to not think about it anymore, you're just going to admit that it's bad. So I guess a good way of explaining that is, like, since most people are negatively wired, it seems it's pretty safe for me to say that humans have some type of instinctual negative charge. I'm not sure if this is from birth necessarily, or if it's from environmental reasons. I would think it's mostly due to environmental reasons, but most people, there's a negativeness that is needed. Like they need to feel negativity, and not only that, but their negativity is needed for their own survival. Like people need an excuse to feel negative so often. And it doesn't really matter, like, the people will get upset, envious over people who are happy. And it's silly. Even envy doesn't make sense. When you feel that way, actually think about it instead of just acknowledging it. Like, it's when stuff happens to you, validating it is the least productive thing you can do. Trying to find a purpose, trying to validate yourself is very narcissistic. It's probably the one of the major flaws. It ties directly in with greed, and some of the most negative things is this like endless battle for validation that people go through. And it's failing to realize that when you are validated, it's only because your internal self has acknowledged that when you're validated, it will give that response that you're looking for. But it has nothing to do with the fact that somebody told something to you, like they gave you a compliment. It has nothing to do with that. What it has to do with is it has to do with your brain accepting that when you receive a compliment, it means something. But the question is, why wouldn't you just feel that way without receiving anything anyway? Why are so many people nowadays just longing for this like eternal validation from their peers? It's very interesting to me to see it happen, because it's a premise that's just wrong. There's no truth to emotional validation. And it's a slippery slope, because once you accept, if you're in that echo chamber of thinking that external words, external factors are actually there and actually mean stuff, then now you're kind of going to be lost until you break out of that, because you're going to still think that happiness is through a force, even if you don't think it is, because everybody will admit that money doesn't buy you happiness. You don't need to be rich to be happy, all this other stuff. But then they can't really understand that, and nobody does. Like I've never met a person who has made that statement and actually really known what they're talking about. They just will say that and sort of pretend it's true, or know that it's true, and maybe they're not able to understand it, but they know it's true, so they're just saying it. Or even they don't even know the full concept, but they think the concept they have is good enough. That's an entirely other issue. People think that the concept they have for something is good enough. It's never good enough, because there's no limit to what you do. That's why I say a lot. They always say that saying, like, oh, every day you learn something new, right? But it's really, you really, every day, the real time when you'll finally learn something new when you realize that there's no more learning to be had, because regardless of what you do, you're never going to be able to know whether you were more or less intelligent than you could have been, because your brain can't grasp that unless you are fictionalizing a regretful state. Because regret is not, it doesn't make any sense. You can't regret doing something unless you were mentally disillusioned by whatever you are regretting. for instance, like if I had dropped out of high school, it's actually impossible for me to regret that, because there's no way that I would ever know what it would be like to have done what I'm regretting. Do you see how it is? Like you literally can't regret anything you ever do, because it'll never have a lasting effect, because everything's temporary. And this is a good thing. I'm not, like, people hear and just think negative. It's not negative, man. This is like joy. It's very happy to be able to sleep, and then your dreams are good dreams, and they're not some negative stuff, because you're breaking the programming. You're not, I mean, it's good. It's definitely a good thing. So it's really crazy. That's all. Like, sleep is a very valuable thing. Sleep leads to a lot, and you guys should sleep more. It's very good. It's very good to sleep.